welcome to the Check Swing Podcast. It is Thursday night. It's Miguel. It's myself. It is an exciting time, especially here in the city of brotherly love, here in the city of Philadelphia. As you can imagine, the whole city is on fire right now because the Phillies are back in the World Series. Yes, welcome to the Check Swing Podcast, y'all. Here on New Twist Radio. Make sure you hit us up and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at New Twist Radio. And make sure you check out the Check Swing Podcast at Check Swing PC on Twitter and all that good stuff. And make sure you subscribe, as you see up there. Where is it? Up there? Up there over Miguel's head. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to New Twist or youtube.com/New Twist Radio. And what you can do there, hit the subscribe button. You can check out all the shows that air here on New Twist Radio and all the specials we've done. A lot of attention is given to our OJ specials, so definitely you want to probably want to check those out. As my wife calls me right now as we just start the show, I should answer on air, but
You should
I should. Okay, let me see what happens. Here we go.
tell her you're live on here.
We're live on air. How are you? We are live on air. I just texted you a few minutes ago, said I'm about to start the show. So I'm answering the phone on air.
I'm sorry, my phone died. So I just wanted to let you know I'm on my way home.
Okay. All right. Well,
Sorry to everyone watching. Bye.
so long. See you when you get home.
Can she get eggs and milk and cheese?
Oh, she just hung up. But she probably won't. So you know how I like to start the show, even though it didn't start like that today. I like to start off the show by asking all my people how they been. So Miguel, brother, how you been? It's been a couple weeks.
I have been well, sir. Tripping over this championship that I was completely wrong about. Which I'm, yeah. And I think that you know, it's just an exciting time. Anytime there's playoff baseball or playoff football, playoffs, anything, a team competing for a championship is just wonderful. To get the vibe, around the city. And it's weird because this is the first year of my life that I'm experiencing championship sports, Philly championship sports, but I'm not in Philadelphia. Because it's weird. I'm like, riding the light rail. I'm like, where's the energy? I'm like, oh, I'm in Baltimore.
Yeah, how about I was thinking about that, like, man, it sucks to be a Philadelphian from out of town or to be out of town. You're a Philadelphian, but you're out of town because you're not getting the entire feeling of what we're getting here in the city. What you got?
Right. And I got the vibe when when the Orioles were going on their run over the summer and they were calling up all the young guys and they were winning, they were beating the Yankees, stuff like that. All of a sudden, like, I'm seeing like people wearing orange shirts and hats and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, I missed that vibe. But it's just different, you know what I mean? It's different coming from this side of town.
How would you compare fan bases? Now, mind you, we know. Well, you're in the Baltimore area, and we know that it's in close vicinity to the Washington area, about 45 minutes away. And we know there's kind of a split fan base in that sense, as opposed to being here in Philadelphia, where there's pretty much only one show in town. But how would you compare the fan bases comparing that to the Philadelphia fan base?
They're passionate about the Ravens and the Orioles because there's 2 teams here versus 4. So
Right.
I will say there is a passion about it. They're kind of realistic, like Philly fans are. Like we know when we're when we suck and when we're good. They have that rivalry with Pittsburgh and um I sensed the vibe when I went to my first Orioles game at Camden Yards and it was against the Yankees. And I was like, okay, there it is. Like there was a lot of Yankees fans. It was like Phillies Mets when the Phillies were bad and you hear a whole bunch of Mets fans coming in. But when the Orioles turned around and came back in the game that I went to, I was like, man, there's that atmosphere. So I would say the only thing, they're not as life or death as we Philly fans tend to be. You know what I mean?
Interesting.
Unless there's like a depressing loss. Like they talk a lot about how the Orioles seem to get to a certain point with their players and then they trade them all away. Like I think 14 was their last big run. They had Machado. They had oh man, I forget their outfield, but they had like 6 or 7 really good players.
I want Adam Jones, I
Adam
think.
Jones, that's who I was. Yeah, and
Outfield.
they had like 6 or 7 really good players, and then they decided to give Chris Davis like a 10, 13 year contract, and I don't think he hit above 100 the rest of his career, but they let Machado
He's
go.
had the ball since.
Right. So there's that kind of sense of like what are it's almost like they're the pirates of the American League. That's kind of the sense that I get because
Mm.
even this year they had a very good closer. They had 2 or 3 really good players. Trey Mancini, who was like he was like a heartwarming story because he overcame, I believe, leukemia, some sort of cancer. He came back full strength, and then they traded him. And I'm like, why would you trade away number one a good player and number two kind of like a heartwarming story? But at the end of the day, they got some players in return, and Trey Mancini's actually playing in the World Series. So but
It
the
worked
talk
out.
it worked out for him, but not necessarily for the Orioles. But it seems like they have a really good minor league system. They called up like 10 or 11 players, and like 6 of them like really have good talent.
Mhm.
But it's just like they're kind of waiting to see. I was like, well, when are they going to trade this guy? Just like when Pittsburgh had like McCutcheon, and I think that once when they had Garrett Cole, they had a whole bunch of players, and at a certain point, they just trade them all away and then claim poor. So
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time with these teams when they have to, basically start over when they know they've reached a point where they're not going to get any better. They don't have what it takes to get better. They have to get rid of everybody, start over. Kind of like this what the Sixers did a few years ago with the process and all like that. But we're here on the Check Swing podcast. We're talking Phillies in the World Series. We're talking Eagles are still undefeated, coming off the bye, going up to Pittsburgh to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And but of course, all the talk in the town here in Philadelphia has been about the Phillies. Um, I believe Miguel said he didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. I said I didn't think they were going to make it out of the first round. I didn't think they were going to make it out of the second round. I thought they would make it out of the third round. I did. I started to believe. But let me tell you something, Miguel. Game 3. No, hold on. I'm sorry. They clinched in 5. Game 4 of the NLCS was the first time this entire year where this team gave me '08 vibes. And I'm sure you know what I mean by that, but for the people that may not know what I mean by that, the '08 team for the Phillies was the team that won the World Series. And that entire season, you could just tell there was something special about that team.
yeah,
They battled to the end. You never thought that they were out of a game ever. No matter what the score was, you always felt like they could come back. And they made some dramatic comebacks in '08.
Whew.
Um, but that game 4, I think, was the game that was like back and forth, back and forth. And I never felt like they were out of that game. I never felt like they were out of that game. I always had the feeling of they're going to win this game. And obviously they did. But it was the first time I had '08 vibes with this team, the way it's currently constructed. The first time I had '08 vibes. And it felt good. It really felt good because I forgot how that felt to really believe your team is good enough to win a game, to win an important game, to win a big game, to win a game when they were down, to a back and forth game. And we're seeing that with these playoff fills. Um, with you seeing that, I mean, with me saying that, did you get that feeling at all? Am I late on the feeling? Am I too early on the feeling? What do you think about
I,
that
I
feeling?
no, it's a challenge because I felt like the '08 team, they never really fell behind. Once they were up, in my opinion, the way that I remember, because I think they won the division 3-1. NLCS 4-1, the World Series 4-1. So they only had 3 losses, and right now, even with the extra round, the Phillies have only lost. Well, they lost what 2
Two,
games,
2 games. Right?
but they really had the battle. They had to come back against St. Louis. In the first game, they had to come back a couple times back and forth with San Diego. So even though it was 4-1, I thought it was like a real tough 5-game series, minus the one blowout in I believe game 1. Um, so that's why I think it's a little different than '08 because I feel like because we still don't have a true closer. You know what I mean? And that was and that was my rant. Like, who's gonna close these games? And even Sir Anthony, in game 4, came up and I think they were trying to get the 6-out save or the 4-out 5-out save, and he blew it. So it was like, here we go. Because then who else? And then we had brought in Dave Robertson. He pitched the 2 batters, and they got on base. And then you had Ranger Suarez, a starter, former closer, come in and close it out. And it was just a beautiful thing. But I think that's just making this team kind of a little bit more special.
It's kind of the scrappiness of them. It's like
Yeah,
go in and do and get the job done.
right.
And if your teammate doesn't, if the man before you doesn't get it done, go in there and pick them up.
And I think what's different is this manager gives me Dallas Green vibes. And for those that don't know who Dallas Green was, he was the manager for the Phillies' very first World Series in 1980. And the reason why I say Dallas Green vibes is because he did whatever he needed to do to win. Jim Fregosi in 1993, great manager, brought in the platoon system, got a bunch of thugged out, unkempt baseball players to somehow come together to get to the World Series. But his downfall was that he was deathly loyal and that he went with the people that got him there, even when they were in a slump. And he had an opportunity to win that World Series, but because of loyalty, I think that kind of caused the loss and the loss of that World Series. And even with Charlie Manuel, I mean, the '08 team honestly was a bloop and blast team. Like, you had 5 or 6 home run hitters in the lineup. And you kind of have that now. Maybe we have 3 or 4, but again, it's that scrappiness. It's that, like, once the Phillies would lose a game in '08, they were done. They pretty much lost the game. Not too many comebacks from what I remember. There may have been, more than I may be underselling that, but I just remember the playoffs kind of really being surprisingly easy.
See, I remember the playoffs in '08 being, I hate to say easy, but I remember them really not being challenged. But the series against the Dodgers, they did have to come back. You had the Matt Stairs home run.
That's true.
In the one year, um, you had the I can't even remember who else they played in the playoffs those years. I just remember the Matt Stairs. But in '08 during the regular season, because I feel like I watched almost every game in that regular season. I know I didn't. There's no way I watched 182 games, but is it how many games is it? Did I say that right?
62.
162. I mix it up with the NBA because NBA is 82 games, so I would just automatically say 182 games because whatever. But I do that all the time. But I can remember them coming back in games in '08 because I remember like, yo, they're going to come back in this game. They're not out of this game. That team was never out of their lineup was so um I don't even know what I would call it. I want to say dynamic.
It was.
Power. I mean, they had such a contrast. They had the power hitters. They had your singles hitters, your spray hitters, your clutch hitters. You had guys like Jason Worth that could take it out the park or hit a gap. Jimmy Rollins could do the same. For Shane Victorino, Jimmy Rollins gets on base, is dangerous. At a time when stealing bases still a thing in Major League. Ryan Howard hitting the ball out the park. Chase Utley hitting the ball out the park. Um, the pitching staff was amazing, and that's one of the biggest differences I think between this team and the '08 team is the pitching staff.
Yeah.
You have Nola, you have Wheeler. After that, it's kind of like Ranger Suarez has kind of stepped his game up into that third spot. Eflin come back from injury. Probably best that he's coming out of the bullpen now because it kind of gives you a stronger bullpen. Because our bullpen is kind of, it was pretty much bad all year up until like September, right? Excuse me, but you got Syndergaard in the bullpen, which I think is a good addition to the bullpen. Eflin in the bullpen on the back end can probably, can say he has. I think he had a save in the playoffs, at least one.
He's he's closed out, I think, too. So he's closed out like 3
Yeah,
games.
yeah. So you got. It kind of reminds me of the '07 year. The '07 year where we
Yeah,
had Brett Myers closing games.
yeah.
Coming, he goes from the starting role to a closer role. But we all know how '07. We ain't even gonna go into that. We know how that ended. It didn't end with us in the World Series like this one did. But anyway, I'm getting those vibes. I'm getting those good vibes of '08. Um, but this Astros team, man, this Astros team is a buzzsaw. They can take your happiness real quick, real quick. I mean, the Mariners waited 20 some odd years to get into the playoffs and got swept. And at least in the last game, they played the equivalent of 2 games before they got swept out of the playoffs. So they got to see their team play for an extra game before before the Astros got them out of there. But this Astros team is strong. The lineup is strong. The lineup is dangerous. Verlander seems untouchable in the playoffs at times. Game one is going to have Nola, I believe, going up against Verlander, which we'll talk about that strategy in just a minute. But I know one of the things that you wanted to do today and that we're going to do today is we're going to compare the two teams. We're going to compare the position by position. We're going to compare the two teams and see who has the upper hand as far as the check swing podcast is concerned. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and let me put this in here real quick. Right there, you got catchers. We're starting with the catchers. Okay, who are the two catchers?
So the reason why I put both catchers is because they're kind of platooning. You have Christian Vasquez, who came over in a trade from Boston, and then Martin Maldonado. I don't think he has the blue hair anymore. From a hitting standpoint, they're not combined the same hitter as like a JT Realmuto. So the advantage here would go to the Phillies because Realmuto is arguably the best catcher in the game. He has a 820 OPS and he leads Major League Baseball with a 41% caught stealing percentage. So I think from defense and offense, I think that the Phillies are at the advantage.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Real Musa, like you said, one of the best catchers in the business right now. Don't run on him because you might get embarrassed. Man, his reactions, pop time is crazy. Um, has good demeanor in the batter's box. He's got some timely hits. Sometimes he can frustrate you, but that's baseball. But he's got some timely hits. He's got the only inside the park home run for a catcher in Major League history, and it
Postseason,
came in the
postseason
playoff
streak.
postseason. Excuse me, postseason history came in the playoffs in the second round in the NLDS against the Braves. Which when I was watching that game, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I told him, and I'm going to use this example when it comes to coaching the kids. That inside the park home run was a direct result of the right fielder not doing his job for Atlanta. Ronald Acuna Jr. did not do his job and converge on the ball as it was going to center field. He actually stood there and watched the play happen because I guess he assumed his teammate was going to catch the ball. Once he didn't, he wasn't in position to make a play. JT got speed. JT got wheels. He made it happen. Actually, JT could have scored standing up on that too.
He could, but
He could have
that's not.
scored standing up. And I wish somebody was there to tell him that he didn't need to slide, so he could have stood up on it because that would have been even cooler.
But
Stand up inside the park home run.
sliding makes it more fun.
Oh yeah, I agree. Sliding makes it more fun, but how dope would it have been? Because what they say, a stand up triple, a
Yeah,
stand up double, a stand up inside the park home run.
yeah.
Do you ever see that? A stand up inside the park home run, like he just scores and he just walks off like I'm still clean. So we're giving advantage here to the Phillies at the catcher's position. Shoot, the simple fact that they're platooning catchers in Houston, I got to give the advantage to the Phillies there. Just due to that. So let's go ahead and move on to the next one. What's the next one you got?
All right, so we got Yuri Gurriel and Reese Hoskins. So
Do you really want me to talk about that? I don't even know, to be honest with you. I'm not even familiar with Yuri Gurriel. I don't
so
even know
he's
if I said his name right, but I'm not
so he's
familiar.
he's he's 38 years old, surprisingly, but he has the
Yo,
hair.
he looks like in that picture, and I don't mean to talk about the brother, but he looks like I want to say is his name Iggy Cooper with his hair like that. Kind of looks like the one Cooper kid that has his hair just
Yeah.
like that.
Well,
I'm
he
sorry.
look
Go ahead.
he look you know he looks like he hangs around too many young people that are giving him bad advice on clothing and hair. So, um, so advantage here, and it depends on the situation. I love Reese Hoskins for his clutch home runs, clutch hits, but he's only batting 182 in 44 total at bats, and his defense. It's so frustrating because the one defensive play that, I mean, we technically probably should have swept Atlanta had it not been for that one fielding gaff that he made, which he owned it. Props to Hoskins. He does own it,
Mhm.
when he's, messed up. But I'm like, the drop double play in the one game costing Reese Hoskins a shutout. You know what I mean? And granted, yeah, it was kind of a blowout game. We won 9-1, should have been 9-0. But in the World Series, I don't know if you can come back from that.
Every pitch is magnified.
You dig what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, and there was, I
He
think,
made me. I, I'm gonna be honest with you. I've told you on this show. I've told you in person. When the Phillies, ever since '08, when the Phillies are not good, it's difficult for me to really watch baseball. Right. So I watched as much of the Phillies as I could as they were, having their. I'm going to call them growing pains because they're in the World Series now. And I did not see. I only heard on the radio how I'm going to say how difficult of a season Reese Hoskins was having at first base, to the point where a lot of people were saying, "Yo, get him out of here. We need him out of here." Whatever the case may be, right? But it wasn't until I think it was 3 plays in the playoffs. Um, the one against the one against San Diego, where he's coming down the first base line and he just closes the glove to her. That I almost lost my stuff when that play happened. I could not believe that one. The play against Atlanta, okay, where they make that play, probably we may not lose the game. I'm not going to say we would have won, but we may not lose the game in that situation. And then I believe there was another play in against Atlanta. I think it was the game that I went to, and I don't think you knew that I went to the game
that was the game that you went to. Yeah,
where he dropped. Yeah,
yeah,
where
yeah.
he dropped.
It,
And you know what? It kind of. I think being at the game, believe it or not, being at that game kind of softened the blow for me,
Mhm.
because you get the turn and the ball goes in his glove. Everybody starts going crazy, and then but I saw him drop it, and then it got quiet. And I was at the game with R. Dot, and he didn't stand up this time. He's got a a knee issue where standing up and down a whole bunch of times is going to wear him out. But he looked at me and said, "What happened?" I said, "He dropped it." And it just kind of softened the blow, I think, because if I saw it on TV and saw it clearly on TV, because we were right down the right field line, so I could see right there at first base. But if I saw it on TV, I probably have lost my stuff.
Bro,
But I,
I
I, I
lost
want
it.
to I want to pop something in here real quick, okay? If you don't
Mhm.
mind,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna put this in. That is Iggy Cooper. That's who I was talking about there, and I'm gonna go ahead and take this out, and I'm gonna put this back in, and you know.
Compare and contrast. Advantage Philadelphia.
So I just wanted to put that out there, just to show you what I was talking about. But in this situation, I'm really going to have to go with. I'm going to have to go against Reese.
Really?
I'm going to have to go against Reese. Reese has. Correct me if I'm wrong. Reese has 3 hits in the playoffs, and they're all home runs.
He has 6 hits, 5
Okay.
homers, and a double. 5 home runs and a
Okay.
double.
So I was wrong. Damn, he got 5 home runs. Okay, see, I missed some of that. Um,
But he's still batting 8 point. He's batting 182 in 44 at bats.
yeah, he's been sat down quite a few times, but um, you know, he has stepped up a little bit in the playoffs. He's become that hitter that Phillies fans were expecting him to be over the last few years. So, um, but just because of those plays that he didn't make in the field, I got to give the advantage to the Astros in this one. Are you on the same page? Or are you giving it to the Phillies?
I gotta give it to Reese from the standpoint of clutch hits.
Okay.
And I'm just hoping and praying that when the game is on the line that the ball is not hit to him.
Yes, because I would not like to have a. I'm stalling because I can't remember his name. But is it Buckner?
Bill
Uh,
Buckner.
the ball going through the legs in the World Series. I would not like to have one of those situations here in Philadelphia. That would just hurt my soul. So you're going with Reese in this situation. I'm going with the Astros in this situation. Gurriel. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm definitely wrong. What you got next?
Second base. I'm sorry. I had to go with these pictures because these guys are probably the most animated players on each team. Um, so Segura is kind of like a Latin Reese Hoskins. In the fact that he had a couple of gaffes, and he had that one game where he had the defensive drop, double play, then he got a clutch hit, and then immediately got picked off at first base. It was probably the most frustrating. I think the double play drop from Reese was actually that all happened in the same game.
No, it wasn't the
It
same.
wasn't
But
the same
the two
game.
double play drops. The
You're
the
right. No, no, no.
Segura
It was
drop.
actually it was the next game. It was the clincher
Yeah,
against Atlanta. Yeah, yeah. You're right.
yeah. Um, can I ask you to put on your coach's hat for a second before we pick who is who? I want to ask you a question, and I'm going to preface this question by saying they're professionals. The play should have been made. Okay,
Correct.
I'm going to preface by saying that double play ball that Segura dropped, was the ball put in a bad place for Segura to make that play? Now, your common baseball watcher is not going to understand what I'm saying. So let me explain it. For the most part, when a ball is hit to that side of the field, the shortstop, um, third base side of the field, and you're turning a double play to second base, you tend to tell your fielder to throw the ball kind of to the backside of second base, maybe a little up so they can catch the ball and have it in position to go ahead and turn. That ball was thrown to the front side of the base and low. So put on your coaching hat, Miguel, and what do you say about that play? It's tough, right? It should have been the play should have been made.
The play should have been made. At the very least, we always tell our infielders what get an out. At the
Yes.
very least,
Hmm.
get an out. So even in a play like that, he should have, from a coaching standpoint, been more concerned about securing the ball, getting the out, and then if you have the opportunity to get the second out, get the second out. But you have to get the out. So from that standpoint, yeah, that's on Segura.
Okay.
And bad throw, yeah, but it was a bad throw. It's the same thing as like
It was a makeable play.
it was a makeable play, but again, the mindset should have been get the out.
Mhm.
So now you run into a situation where you could have had at least one out. Now you have no outs, and that's what made the situation, kind of challenging
Yeah.
from that standpoint.
So
So
let's go into the comparison here because this is an interesting comparison. I feel like Altuve probably more so because of the recent success in the last 6 7 years of the Astros. I feel like Altuve is more of a household name than Segura is. Um, Defensively, I have to admit I don't know how good Altuve is defensively, but I have to assume he's pretty doggone good. I've
well,
seen. So, go ahead.
no. The other aspect of it too, and surprisingly, is standing at 5'6".
Yeah.
Um, he's uh Altuve is 5'6", but he swings like
Mhm.
a 38-inch bat. It's really awkward. But he ranks second all
You
time.
might hear
Altuve,
about him later. I don't know.
right? He probably tries a Dodge Ram. He ranks second all time with 23 playoff home runs. Altuve does. Just behind
So,
Manny
if we
Ramirez.
had R Dot on the show right now, I'm sure R Dot would have something to say about that. To be honest with you, because one of those home runs was a clutch home run hit off Alfonso Chapman some years back.
Hydraulic Chapman.
Yeah, what did I say?
You said Alfonso Chapman. You combine do two different Yankees. You combine the second baseman and the
Alfonso
pitcher.
Soriano. Yeah, so Aroldis Chapman, which we know throws the ball 132 miles an hour, and he just turned on it. And we know at that time was the time when the Astros were being accused of the cheating and all like that.
You know what my favorite part of that whole scenario was? Watching Chapman's look on his face. Like he knew he because he smiled. He smiled the whole time. And he had that look on his face like, man, but I can't say nothing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Very interesting. Very interesting. R dot, if you want to hit us up 669-275-0323. I know it's a touchy subject for all Yankee fans, and I get that. Um Altuve can hit the ball out the park. Segura can, but he's not like Altuve. But Altuve is, I mean, Segura is a very tough out when it
He
comes
is.
to that. He will get you 10, 12 pitches in to account. Um
Yeah.
he fouls a lot off. He'll hit a base hit on a ball that he shouldn't even have swung at and find a way to get on base. I'm probably just off familiarity or maybe lack thereof. I'm probably going to give Altuve the nod here just because Altuve is probably the more dangerous hitter and he might be the more sure-handed fielder. Even though I think Segura plays a big role in this series, a bigger role in this series than Altuve does.
Yeah, what people forget is Segura's he's actually a shortstop playing second base.
You're absolutely right. You're
And
absolutely right.
but he still has probably one of, if not the best arms as a second baseman in baseball. The tricky part here is that Altuve is going through one of his longest slumps ever. He's actually he doesn't have a hit yet in playoffs. He's over 25.
He'll get a hit in the World Series.
Right. And that yeah, it's like, all
I'll put
right,
money on that.
right. So that's like, okay. He's been here before and But again, the Astros have a humongous supporting cast.
Yes, they do.
So
So who you going? Who you giving the nod to in this one? I'm going with Altuve in this one, and it hurts me though because I really like Gene Segura. I really do, but I think it was that whole drop double play ball that kind of it put a bad look.
it hurt your soul.
It did. It really did.
I'm gonna go Segura for the simple fact that when they landed in Houston yesterday, he actually wore his baseball uniform,
Did he really?
the pants, the jersey, everything. He
Oh,
has his backpack with his headsets. Yep,
he's ready.
he's ready.
He's ready. Maybe. Who? So we'll see. All right. So you're going. So you kind of changed the rules on me.
I did.
You're,
All right. Let me go by the rules. I'll stick within the rules. I will stick within the rules. I'm still going Gene Segura.
You're still going with Gene Segura, and let's not forget Segura was an All-Star at one point too.
Yeah, he was
He was an All-Star in Seattle. So, I'm gonna go with Segura. And then probably I'm doing it probably because of bias, but Altuve, I can't really get past the fact that Altuve was like really like he cheated.
One of the integral cheaters.
Leon Tillman says it raises the question. What question does it raise, Leon? Let me know. Or you can hit us up. You can call us at 669-275-0323. 669-275-0323. I'm going to go with give me
You got Segura?
Give me Segura. You made me change my mind. Give me Segura. He's ready, man. The game ain't till tomorrow. Yep. And he's on the plane with his uniform on. Give me Segura.
Yep.
He's locked in. I hope. So at the shortstop position, and this is my unfamiliarity with the Astros. Well, let me go to Leon's comment real quick. He says Altuve has the playoff experience. I hate to say that, Segura. Please prove me wrong. I'm saying the same thing. And that says a lot, right? Mm-hmm. That he has the playoff experience. But this whole Phillies team, like Schwarber has experience. I believe Castellanos had some experience. But outside of that, like that was pretty much it. Like I think Bryce went to like one playoff, maybe.
Yeah, I think that he was one or two playoffs with the Nationals. I think I remember the one.
Did Real Mucho go with the Marlins.
So you got a lot of newbies. See, Segura's first, Wheeler's first, Nola's
I feel like after that first at bat of your first, like this will be a first World Series for everybody on the Phillies,
right?
Or except for Schwarber. I think Schwarber went with the Cubs.
So it's unique because both shortstops are rookies for both Phillies and the Astros. Now the advantage will probably go to, so the shortstop is Jeremy Pena from the Astros. I believe he's the one that hit the game-winning home run in the 19th inning against Seattle. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but he's the one that actually filled in the shoes for Carlos Correa, because Carlos Correa signed a big contract with the Twins and is already opting out because it's Minnesota. So he came in and filled in his shoes admirably. Was the ALCS MVP, and really kind of came through clutch. And Stott, although not the MVP, had some really, really fantastic at bats, and
absolutely did.
Was an absolute one of, if not the toughest outs throughout the entire playoffs, and just getting clutch hits. So I got to admit, I didn't like Stott. I thought he was like too tall, too lanky. I didn't like the way he played defense, but I think he kind of grew on me.
You sound like my opinion of Bone, but go ahead.
yeah, no kidding. But I just, it was something about him. I was like, I'm not feeling. I wasn't feeling Stott. I thought there's better shortstops out there. I think there's actually one or two better in our system. But from a hitting set, like I think he's a second baseman. To be quite honest, I think he should be playing second base, and Segura should go back over to short.
Sure. Yeah,
So
I thought once they got rid of Didi, I thought Segura was going to go back to short, but they did that to bring up Stott. Um,
right.
I'm I'm going to have to go with Pena in this, and I really like Stott. Like Stott really grew on me this year too, but I'm going to go with Pena because I believe that Thompson is probably going to play. I forgot the backup's name, but he's probably going to play him
Sosa and Mundo Sosa, yeah.
Sosa. He's probably going to play Sosa against lefties.
And that'll be tricky too, because that's one advantage that I think the Phillies are going to have against the Astros. They only got one lefty in their pitching staff.
Yeah, they only have, and I think that's when Sosa will probably get the nod, because that's kind of been what Thompson has been doing in this playoffs. He's putting Sosa in there against the righties, against the lefties, and letting Stott. Stott has gotten the majority of the. I was going to say minutes. He's gotten the majority of the playing time. But I'm going to go with Pena because I believe Pena is going to be in there no matter what the Phillies put out there. So just because of that, I'm going with Pena in this situation, and but I hope Stock continues to play big in these playoffs. Leon put in another. I think he's still talking about Altuve here. He said, "Small guy, big bat, had perfect timing with a pitcher throwing 100 plus." We're talking about Chapman there, but he hit it in a short porch that year. Hmm. You know what?
You can't
Uh,
you can't go
no,
back.
no, no, I'm not changing. I'm not changing. I'm not changing. But I was going to the short porch comment.
Uh,
So I used to be one that would bring that up. I've kind of stopped talking about the short porch. It's nobody's fault that they hit it over a wall where the wall it might be shorter than other fields.
well, do you remember the big
Control it. I'm going to try to hit it that way.
one of the big complaints from Yankees fans about the first two games in Houston was like, well, they only hit it because the dome was closed. And then I think the first or second pitch in the first at bat again when they went to New York, they hit another home run. So it was like,
Yeah, you
you
can. I
know,
mean, you can always have. They only did it because they only hit the ball over because it's in Florida and the ball carries in Florida. Like you can
Mhm.
always say something, right?
Right.
But like Yankee Stadium got a short porch. Minute Maid Park is not that big. Um, Citizens Bank Park is a hitter's ballpark. You got Red Sox have the monster in left, but in right, you hit a ball over first baseman's head, it might be a home run. So you got short porches all over the place. I'm taking advantage of a short porch if I can. Um, I'm not going to take anything. I mean, what Leon said was legit, but I'm not going to take anything away from anybody that hit the ball over a short field. That's how the place was constructed. The Phillies management ownership wanted Citizens Bank to be that way to attract more home run hitters to their ballpark. So it's the days of the polo grounds are over, right?
Right.
So um, yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. But yeah, I'm going with Pena in this situation. Are you going with Pena? Or you going with Stott here? Please,
I'm going
please
Pena.
don't fall. You're going with
I mean,
Pena in this?
yeah, 'cause, I mean, he's been clutch. He's filled in big shoes, and I don't see him getting. Yeah, I go Pena.
Okay. All right. I ain't mad at that. What we got at third base here? Alec Bowman. Who's the Astros third baseman?
Alex Bregman.
Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman. I think this is probably a no-brainer. I gotta go with Bregman here.
Yeah, Bregman has 23 home runs, 38 doubles. Um, yeah, has been clutch. A lot of LSU players facing each other because Bregman and Nola were at LSU. I think they graduated the same year, drafted the same year. So,
Hmm. Interesting.
um, plus,
Fact.
I don't think you defensively replace Bregman like you do Bohm. So,
Yeah, Boom. Let me just all right. So I believe my first Phillies game that I went to this year was the game where Bohm said I effing hate this place.
mhm.
I think that was the first because when he made the three errors.
Yeah,
And but the Phillies still ended up winning that game. So um Bohm has made strides defensively at
yes,
third base this year. He has worked at it. He's put in the work. He has improved. He's no Mike Schmidt yet. I don't expect him to be Mike Schmidt. He's no Judy Johnson. I don't expect him to be Judy Johnson. He's no Manny Machado. Who he is who he is, and I believe he will still improve. Now, I don't have his personal statistics as far as his height and all like that, but I just personally feel like he's very tall to be playing third base.
yeah. He's 6'5", 220.
That's like pitcher outfield first base to me, but I don't know what other third baseman may be. But Bregman, I know is a solid third baseman. Um, and he's been around the league for he's been in the league for a while. He's a solid player, solid first baseman. Bohm is still young in his tenure. I believe last year was his first season up with the big club for a full season, I believe, and he might have actually been sent down at some point last season. But um, as I said earlier, I'm going with Bregman in this comparison here. Just because Bohm has had his moments, so I'm going with Bregman here.
Got it.
Are you? And you're also you said you're going with Bregman too, right?
Yeah,
Let me put in Leon's comment here. He said, "I would not want to be a prime pitcher going into a short porch. Then Orioles may attract some prime pitchers now with the adjustments." Um, yeah, I mean, I listen. If you have a ballpark where you're attracting home run hitters, that means the pitchers want to be in the bigger ballparks, right? If you're just using that philosophy, the pitchers want to be in the bigger ballparks, not the short porches, unless the pitchers are just so confident in their stuff that it's not going. If you're a Justin Verlander, something like that, where they're not going to be touching me up anyway. Put me in a bandbox. Put me in a
yeah,
matchbox.
what they did to the left field seats in Camden Yards is an abomination. Stupid. It's like
What did they do?
let's take out 7 rows of seats and move the fence back. I think it's like 60 feet. It's dumb. And then you're bringing it back. Okay, whatever.
Well, I guess they're trying to do their part. I've been to Camden Yards once. I've been to Camden Yards once, and I thought it was nice. It's pretty old looking, right? Or should I say vintage, nostalgic looking?
Vintage and intimate.
Yeah, very very intimate. Um, the the Orioles fans gave me the business because this was I told you before this was the game. This was probably wow. This might have been 6 years ago, maybe seven. I'm not sure, but it was like the Miguel Franco, that team,
Yeah.
and the Orioles hit like 72 home runs in this game. So yeah, they gave the Phillies the business in that game, and the Orioles fans gave me the business as well because I had my Phillies hat on and all like that. Um, but let's move on to the next position. But I do want to say this that's something I was thinking about as I was talking to some friends of mine that of course when the baseball gets into this time of year when you have playoffs and all like that it generates a little more interest in the game when your local team is in it. But I was thinking about it like what can what can help generate more interest in a game such as there's going to be a lot of people that are Phillies fans. Let's just take my mom for example, right? She's going to watch some of the game, if not all of a game, because it's the Phillies in the World Series. But she is not going to have the interest in it that someone like you and I would have because we kind of understand the matchups and what potential possibilities can happen. So I was thinking about how you or I watching a game, we know Schwarber is a home run hitter. He can put the ball out the park. We know that he should be able to hit a home run against such and such a pitcher. And we know that like Verlander is one of the top pitchers in the game. And to, you know, touch him up at all is a big deal. Your average fan doesn't know that, or your person that's just a fan because they're in the playoffs, they don't know that. And unfortunately, baseball, and I'm going to say it's probably due to the steroid era, baseball does not put that out there for they don't not expose, but they don't promote matchups. They don't promote Bryce Harper versus Justin Verlander, right? That should be like a big talking point. They don't do that anymore. Back in the day, it would have been the Atlanta pitching staff against the hot bats of the Cleveland baseball team at at the time.
You think that'll change now that the shift is going to be illegal and it'll be a true kind of matchup?
It might change. I think that Major League Baseball is still kind of timid on promoting individual players. I think they're still a little timid on that. I think they're still a little hurt by the steroid era. But we'll see. I think if people understood what certain players were capable of during games, that would generate more interest. Case in point, when Bryce Harper hit that home run the other day, I was sitting next to my wife and I said, all right, here we go, Bryce. This is what you make your money right here. This is what you got all this money for. This is your moment. I looked away for a few seconds. I looked back up. He was around the second base. I went nuts. I didn't even see him hit the ball when it happened, but I went nuts. But that's the kind of thing where people know, even the common fan knows Bryce Harper is a star.
Right.
So that's the kind of thing where you're going to pay attention as the common fan because Bryce Harper is up and a home run can happen. But you may not know that Schwarber hit the most home runs in the National League this year.
Right.
So
and the second most in all of baseball.
And the second most of all of baseball this year. So that being said, you have Kyle Schwarber and Yordan Alvarez. This is a tough one. For me, this is a tough one because if I have to pick if I have to say batter, I'm going with Schwarber. Just like that, but I know Alvarez can put them things out too, right? But I think Schwarber might be, to me, outside looking in, common looking in. I'll just say Schwarber might be a little bit better. He might be a little bit more of a threat. Maybe not necessarily to hit a home run, but more of a threat to get on base because he's going to have good at bats. He's going to attack if he's not getting out on the first pitch. Yordan Alvarez, very good bat, can put a ball out in a second against any pitcher. And he's a threat. He's a big power hitter. He's a threat. But I'm going to say that Yordan Alvarez is a little better fielder than Schwarber is. I think you lose a little bit having Schwarber in the outfield. So in this matchup, man, I'm gonna. Oh man, like I really want to go with Alvarez, but my bias is going to make me go with Schwarber in this because I think Schwarber's stick is a little bit better. Pause, and I think that as long as it's not a hit where Schwarber's not that fast to the ball either, but if as long as it's something that he doesn't have to get to the ball quickly, he'll be all right. Like he can make the routine plays out there, he'll be fine. So give me Schwarber in this matchup with Yordan Alvarez.
Um, I'll lean towards Alvarez. His slash, even though even though he hit 37 home runs, his slash line's a little better. He was a 300 hitter.
Hmm.
And I know he was quiet through the ALCS, but I think that I would lean towards him just from the standpoint of he can hit for average as well. Whereas I think Schwarber, he hit some balls against the shift that were real clutch.
Hmm.
Um, and I think he's capable of doing that in the World Series. But I think I'll lean towards Alvarez on this one.
How many times do you think Schwarber gets intentionally walked in this series?
Maybe once. I
Okay.
think because
He got walked.
I think because the pitching staff of the Astros is that deep and good, I don't think they necessarily have to intentionally walk anybody.
Okay. I like that. That's a
So
that's a good response there. So you're going with Alvarez. I'm going with Schwarber on this one. Okay.
yes, sir.
I like it. Let's move on to center field. So all right. So you got Marsh, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
traded for Marsh. Phillies traded for Marsh
Mm-hmm.
to hold down center field, to lock down center field. And he pretty much does that, right? For the most part, he pretty much does that. But at times, his bat can be a liability,
Which is why he bats ninth.
which is why he bats ninth for the most part. And who's the center fielder for Houston?
That would be a Chaz McCormick. Now, Chaz is unique in the fact that I believe he was at Ascent. Um,
I Yeah, that's the kid from Westchester, isn't it?
yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
So
Would I
he.
be would I be wrong to go against? I got to go with McCormick. I
Oh,
just
no
do.
doubt. Yeah. Marsh holds down center field, but is a trash hitter, plain and simple.
Hmm.
And just the I mean he had a respectable line 283 19 455 slash line after the trade from the Angels. Did have a great 3-run home run to clinch the NLDS, but he was really brought in for defense and to kind of quietly expel Odubel Herrera. Um, yeah, but yeah, McCormick's lines are a lot better defensively. Well, I'd say they're about even defensive, but again, it comes down to hitting. So yeah, Chaz McCormick.
Okay, we're both going with Chaz McCormick there. We're giving a lot. I think we're giving a lot of advantages to the Astros. Uh, Castellanos versus Tucker. Castellanos has been pretty decent in the playoffs, honestly. I mean, he hasn't been the home run hitter that he was, but he's been pretty consistent, getting on base, hitting to a couple of double plays. It is what it is. That happens. It's baseball. But I think he's been better in the playoffs than he has during the regular season.
From a defensive standpoint, he plays right field like a 10-year-old third baseman.
What does that mean? I don't know. What does that mean?
Like he plays the outfield like he doesn't want to make an error. So
Okay,
like the ball will be like, whereas
he
like
doesn't take risks.
he doesn't take calculated risk because he's technically playing out of position. He's actually a left fielder.
Right,
And
right.
when everything started, it was going to be Castellanos and Schwarber in left, whoever in center, and Bryson right.
Right. Actually,
Um,
I think Schwarber was going to be like the DH, wasn't
yeah, I think that's what it was kind of lining up to be. But
he?
then what killed it was, the Harper injury,
Right.
which again I thought
Mm.
from a defensive standpoint would have been a liability. And I think too that's kind of the advantage that Houston has. Like with Kyle Tucker, he's an elite defender, and a clutch hitter. So I'm right saying right off the bat that it's going to be Tucker. Um, the advantage goes to Tucker. But I think comparing both teams as a whole, the Astros could do something that hasn't been done since 1976, and that's where a team just runs the table. And that was the Cincinnati Reds in 1976. They're the last team to run the table.
Big Red Machine.
Big Red Machine. And they beat the New York Yankees. um, but this would be an absolute fantastic feat. I don't see them. Well, we won't get to predictions yet, but just from a defensive standpoint, the outfield looks like the advantage as a whole would go towards the Astros.
Okay.
So yeah, then we got the last position.
The last position would be what are we looking at? Pitchers, right? Pitchers, bullpen.
Well, DH.
Oh, DH. Well, I'm going with Bryce.
Yeah, there's no other DH in this series.
Yeah.
And just to be fair to the Astros, the issue is that usually Alvarez is the DH, but he's actually their left fielder. So their DH, they're kind of rotating between Trey Mancini and I always forget who the other guy was. It's Trey Mancini and Aledmus Diaz.
Bryce Harper and them.
So I think when it comes to the series, what it's going to come down to is depth. And this is the tentative, although I think the Phillies have confirmed officially what their starting rotation is going to be for the series. The one caveat is the amount of lefties that we have versus the Astros. So I think that might come into play, especially later in the series.
Yeah, the Houston Astros pitching staff kind of looks like my pitching staff in Diamond Dynasty on the show. Like I was like one lefty in my whole staff. I had to figure that out.
Do you remember? I think it was either 20 or 20 MLB 20 or MLB 21. If you wanted to get a lefty on your staff, you had to spend like 250,000 coins to get a lefty.
I'm going to stop you there because unfortunately Xbox didn't get the game until like last year.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was subjected to RBI baseball, which actually I didn't even get. And one of the other ones, they were terrible baseball games.
Wow. Well, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So yeah, I think when it comes to a depth standpoint, the advantage does go to Houston. However, I think when it comes to certain situations, I think the Phillies will be able to handle a lefty-lefty matchup a little bit better. And it's hard to I believe the Braves were underdogs in the World Series last year against Houston, weren't they?
Yes, they were, and I believe Washington was underdogs against Houston as well.
So it's like it's not far-fetched that the Phillies can kind of pull this off.
No, it's not.
And it's amazing. I forget the meme that I saw, but it showed the top 5 payrolls in Major League Baseball. I think number 1 was the Dodgers, who were eliminated. 2 was the Mets, they were eliminated. 3 was us, and then the 4th was San Diego, and they're eliminated. And I forget who the 5th one was. But it was amazing to see, and I think that really comes down to there's a radio personality that I always used to hate when he say this. People would always say they would always make comments about the clubhouse and having a good atmosphere. And he would always downplay that, like, that doesn't mean anything. It just comes down to wins and losses. And I'm like, that when you look at a clubhouse. And when they made the change at manager, and to see how the team reacted, that can't be anything but atmosphere. You know what I mean? To see how Schwarber, feeds off of Harper, how Harper feeds off of Reese and stuff like that. And I think I posted a meme. I want somebody to love me the way that Hoskins looks at Bryce
I
Harper.
saw that. I saw that was funny.
you know, but it's like you
Uh,
don't you don't get that unless you have like a chemistry. Chemistry
Means
is
a lot.
it means a
I think it's
billion.
downplayed in baseball more because a lot of baseball is individual, whereas basketball, it's you're definitely depending on teammates. Football, you're depending on hockey, soccer, you're depending on teammates a lot because in those sports, you're passing the ball, passing the puck, whatever the case may be. Baseball is you have to solidify your position and the things that you need to do in your position, and then at bat, it's just you versus the pitcher. But when you have good chemistry, now when you have good chemistry, you have less animosity, less jealousy, and you actually are playing for each other.
Yeah.
If Schwarber goes down, next man up is looking to pick up, just looking to make it up for him. JT strikes out, Bryce is looking to make him pay. Bryce strikes out, Castellanos is looking to make him pay. Like they play for each other. So, it definitely means a lot in the game of baseball. It means a lot in every sport, and it means a lot in baseball. And I think it means more than people actually realize in baseball.
Amen.
Are you stumping me today?
Always.
All right, what you got? I'm ready. Let's
You
do
ready?
it.
Go right to it.
What in the hell? A two-time All-Star wore number 20, number 9, number 2, 2, and 2. Last team he played for was the Phillies. The previous team was Tampa Bay, or was that Seattle?
Seattle.
Before that, it was that Washington, or is that
Arizona.
before that is that Houston? Is that like
Milwaukee.
okay? And the, and the first team he played for who was that?
Uh,
Come on now, come on, you gotta help me out.
hold on.
Uh, what position did he play?
Infield. Oh, that's I'm sorry. He started out with the Angels.
All right, Angels, Milwaukee,
Arizona.
Arizona,
San Diego.
San Diego.
Oh, yeah, Seattle. Wrong S. Sorry.
All right, now you threw me all the way off. The
Well,
Angels, Milwaukee, Arizona, Seattle, and now Phillies. Two-time All-Star, and it's not Gene Segura. Yo,
is
to be honest with you, I had no idea Gene Segura played for all those other teams outside of Seattle.
yeah,
I had no idea.
and
I
the
did not
only
know that.
the only teams he played second base for was for us, and I believe the Diamondbacks.
Wow, I had no idea he played for all those teams.
Hmm.
I thought he was fresh out of Seattle, and that was it. Wow, he's been
And it
around
was
for.
funny because there was a thing about him not being like quote unquote a good teammate or whatever. But I think what it is that he's very animated,
Mm,
and he's very passionate. And I heard something as a coach this year, and I heard it more often um, amongst people that were talking. And I'm trying not to be like political or racial or anything like that, but I kept hearing the word what was the word? Not a great teammate. Um, and when I saw like what that was and who the comments were made about, I realized why those comments were made. You,
okay.
you dig what I'm saying? Like, it's funny when we tell our players or athletes like, listen, you have control over certain things, and if you have a question about something, absolutely ask a question. But it's something about when certain groups speak with authority.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Oh yeah,
saying? That
absolutely.
there's something attached to that, like, oh my god, like, why are you mad? I'm like, I'm not mad. I'm just asking a question. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And you know, I think that's kind of what happened with Gene Segura. I mean, and granted, he's had it rough because people forget, there was a pop up like 2 years ago, and there was a collision with McCutcheon, and they believe that he caused the ACL because he didn't run out, the pop up, and you remember that incident,
I remember that, and that's when the Philly season turned around that year too.
right?
Right after
Right after that, and then there
that.
were, and I think that we have to be careful as coaches what we label and how we label, because when you say someone's not a good teammate, it's like, well, what are you? Is it because they speak with authority and they're taking advantage of the fact of they're speaking up
Right.
about something that we gave them authority to do?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes we say, all right, you know what, listen, this is your team, you know, we speak openly and stuff like that. But then when it happens, like, okay, well, don't speak up all the way. You know what I mean? Like, we can't, we can't take that back. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Like
but I've
speak your
heard it.
mind, but don't.
What'd you say?
So like speak your mind, but don't.
Speak your mind, but within the rules.
Right.
But
I got two questions for you.
the first one was I didn't know she was that age, and then the second, no, let me stop. I'm sorry.
Be careful.
And the
All right.
second one is, do I need my lawyer present?
All right, here we go. You ready?
Sure,
All right, these are questions, Major League Baseball questions. So I'm in your wheelhouse here. Okay.
go for it.
But I have a feeling that you're not going to know this first one. But at the same time, I won't be surprised if you do know the first one. First, I'm only going to give you two. First question: what year was the MLB formed? And no, it's not multiple choice because I'm not reading from the cards this time. But I can give you some. I can give you. I can
I
make
know.
up some.
I mean, it was 1800. Was it 18? Excuse me.
That's gonna go over well. When somebody comes to listen to it later, that's gonna go for it.
Uh, Phillies were formed in 1883.
So it was definitely before that.
Right. I'm gonna go 1879.
Oh, you were so close. You were so close until you said nine.
It was 1870.
No, but you were closer when I thought you were going to say 1870. It was 1869. You
Are
were
you
10
serious?
1869, 10 years off.
Oh,
Now, this one, I'm not going to say this because if I say this, you're going to get it right away. So I'll say it after you get it because I think you'll get it. Who is the only pitcher to win three Major League World Series in three different decades? Ooh. Can I give you a clue?
it was a pitcher that won or appeared in three.
Who is the only pitcher to win three Major League World Series in three different decades? I can give you a really good hint slash clue. At least I think I can.
What what decade was the first one?
don't know. To be honest with you, I can look it up for you. I just looked up some stuff on this is that's all they give me. They give me the question and the answer. I can look it up for you. Hold on, let me see.
Was it 1979?
Could have been. I don't know yet. Trying to look this up without you seeing my screen here. There we go. All right, let me see. Played 19 years in the major league.
That was my question.
I'll give you a hint. If you don't get this, you could have some angry coworkers. Um, and I'll give you the time frame of his career. Okay,
Okay.
65 to 84. With it looks like 1 year in between he did not play, or maybe didn't play for this particular team. Oh shoot! What I just do? Ooh man, I just knew you were probably gonna get this one right away.
Well, because it's close to Steve Carlton, but he only won. He didn't win in the 70s. He won with the Cardinals in 60.
So I don't know this to be a fact, but he and Steve Carlton could have possibly faced each other in a World Series. Ooh.
So it would either be Baltimore, but Jim Palmer didn't win in the 70s. He won.
Who?
I said Jim Palmer,
Yes, Jim Palmer is correct.
but
It's
he did. Is it Jim Palmer?
Jim Palmer. Yes, it's Jim Palmer.
That's not right though.
Hey, according
No,
to
no,
what
no,
I
no. Here's why I say that. So unless he won in 66, but he didn't win in the 70s. No, I need to shut up. You are correct.
I know.
Because he won in 66 and then he won in 70 and then he beat us in 83. Bam.
There you
Got it.
go.
Okay.
Jim
Got it.
Palmer.
Jim Palmer. He
So
had
look,
the underwear commercials in the 80s, didn't
I think so.
he?
I don't I think I may have blocked that out of my brain, but I feel like he did have some commercials, and Dan Marino had the isotoner thing all locked up, so I don't think it was isotoner.
You know what always messes me up about Dan Marino and the isotoners?
What was that?
The only thing I remember about Dan Marino is when Ace Ventura, when he's like, Einhorn's a man. Einhorn's a man.
Yeah, I was thinking about, maybe we talked about. I was thinking when the Dolphins were still, on a good run. I was like, man, what if the Eagles and the Dolphins played each other in this year's Super Bowl? It would be dope to bring out like Jim Carrey as Ace Ventura.
Beating the crap out of the
Yeah, you better not do that. That may not go over well.
I don't think so.
Yeah, he beat the brakes off of Swoop in that movie. Though. Still kind of mad about that. I took offense to that during the movie. But classic, stupid movie.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, you know what? Was it the second one where he was in like Africa or something?
Yeah, that was When Nature Calls.
Yeah, When Nature Calls. So, um, this is like stupid moment. I shouldn't even bring it up on the show. But I will because we're here. I think I laughed the hardest I may have laughed in a movie. One time I was watching this movie, and this was not my first time seeing it. This was like some years later when he was whatever he was doing, proving himself in front of the tribe or whatever he had to do. He had to fight like Tommy Davidson or something, and they threw a spear and it hit him in the leg, and he was like, ah. Then they threw a spear, hit him in the other leg, and he was like, ah. Yo, I
But
laughed so hard at that part. I don't
but
know
you,
why I
you-
laughed so
but
hard
he
at that.
changed the octaves. He was like, ah. I think that's what
I
made
laughed
it funny.
so hard at that. I was in tears. I don't know why. It was like my first. It wasn't my first time seeing it, but I laughed like it was. But
No, the
oh,
scene, my favorite scene. We can't say on the air, but
okay. We'll leave that alone. And one of the more classic scenes in movie history was the Nutty Professor table scene. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go check it out. Anyway, we're gonna get up out of here. We appreciate y'all for checking us out on the Check Swing Podcast. Of course, this episode and all episodes will be available on podcast forms on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, go all that good stuff, Amazon, wherever you listen to your podcast, it will be there. Or you can always go over to our YouTube channel and check it out again, check the video version out again, and make sure you share it with some of your baseball. We didn't even talk about the Eagles, but it doesn't matter. It's World Series.
Eagles beat Dallas. Dallas is garbage. Eagles 6-0.
We covered it. There it is. All right. So look, we're getting out of here. We appreciate y'all hanging out with us for the Check Swing Podcast. We will check y'all out next time right here. And hopefully we'll be talking about an Phillies World Series championship. But if not, hopefully we're talking about like game 5 or 6 about to happen. Something like that. Either way, we'll talk to y'all next week. Appreciate y'all hanging out with us. We out of here. Peace.